From the policy point of view, which policies do you think should be implemented in order to fulfill your vision or to mitigate the risks stemming from the challenges that you mentioned?
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, it is clear that there is a very tight relationship between policy and research practice. And of course, policy can influence the development of a research field. At the moment, the regulations on stem cell research are very, very different from one country to another. Between US, Asia, like Japan or China, and Europe, but also within Europe itself. In particular, in the way, so some countries have more tight regulations about how to derive stem cells. In some countries, derivation of stem cells is from like new derivation of stem cell lines is forbidden, and you can only use stem cell lines that have been produced or derived before a certain date or up to a certain date. Other countries have less tight regulations on stem cell research. There is a lot of international collaboration going on between different labs or between academia and corporate. And this is a very good thing, because of course this improves research and improves knowledge and helps in the development of technologies. But apart from that, the different countries have different approaches to the use of human embryos to generate stem. There are also different guidelines for the generation of induced pluripotent stem cells. So I think we need standardized, good manufacturing practices to allow like safe exchange of stem cells between countries. Because if we want to use them for regenerative medicine, we have to be sure that they are produced always in the same way, and that these protocols of generation of iPSCs don't change from one country to another. I think we would need a unified approach to obtain like informed consent, for example, from donors and from patients. Because at the moment, for example, the FDA or the EMA, FDA, the Food and Drug, the US Food and Drug Administration, and the EMA, which are the European Medicine Associations, have different regulations in the way that patients might approach a treatment or will be treated during a clinical trial. So I think definitely we need to be sure that we have a unified view for what concerns, like, example, protocols in producing stem cells or in producing induced pluripotent stem cells, and also in the way that then a treatment involving stem cells gets approved by the different countries. So we need common standards that need to be met before we start, let's say, using stem cells for clinical trials or for therapies. And because it is known that there are some countries that are more liberal with stem cell therapies, but they're also they use protocols that maybe are not verified and accepted by the scientific community. So this is a risk, because we don't really want to establish protocols that then are possibly harmful for the patients. And I think that this needs, protocols need to be established with a common consent of the whole scientific community that deals with stem cells. So
yeah, an example of this confusion in regulation is given by the Italian case Stamina, for example, when there was It's going to. We are going to have an experimentation of a method which is not recognized by the international community, and which is not peer reviewed, and which is based on a very doubtful scientific base and theoretical and applied base. So this is an example.
Recent reports apparently state that the stem cell population used for this method is not pure. Someone says there are not even stem cells in that treatment. So, of course, as I said, what we need is real strict quality control of what we are transplanting into patients before we approve a therapy, or we actually shift to, or we get to a clinical trial. And these things cannot be rushed. So we need a thorough research, basic research, or applied research on what we want to transplant, which type of cells we want to use before we go there and inject them into patients. So.
Yeah, perfect. So, as for the last question, as I explained to you, Futurium is a platform in which the interviews with scientists and researchers in different fields are uploaded in order to foster the debate on scientific topics, in order to inform the policy of the European Commission in the future. And do you think that this kind of exercise aimed to increase the dialogue between scientists and policymakers would be useful? Is it useful?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, as we just said, policy can hinder or even completely stop fields. And it is definitely true that in countries where the regulations on stem cell research were more tight, the research is not as easy, of course, and as developed as in other where also the availability of funding is a problem, because if the state doesn't allow funding for certain types of research, and stem cell research is a very, very expensive type of research. So the basic materials for everyday culture of stem cells are really, really expensive. So without the backup of state funding, federal funding, in the case of US, of course, then doing good stem cell research becomes a challenge that is not something that is available to every lab. So definitely, we need to probably look at the future and see where, probably foresee where this research can go, and what are probably the directions in which we need to invest to finally, get to a point where we can really use stem cells to apply or to and to exploit at the maximum the potential of this type of cells.